What's happening? Andy here. I am joined today by Toni Gorveatt of Cobb Technologies down in Richmond, Virginia. How are you today? What's happening?
I'm great, Andy. How are you?
I am awesome. It is wonderful to see you. I haven't been down there, I guess, in a little bit. Last time I saw you, we were doing the ride for Jillian,
That
and
was a
that
year
was
ago.
our
Yeah,
just about a year, coming up
yeah,
on a year. Our just great last stop, you, and then another dealer down the street from you, Sam. We
yeah.
stop and see the two of you guys, and it's just an awesome, epic ending for a long, long week on the road. And the hospitality we always get from Cobb is just awesome. It's our first stop that morning. Always great breakfast sandwiches, big smiles from lots and lots
Yeah.
of people
Super
there, and
fun. It's a treat for us, and I have a monthly meeting here at Cobb with all the employees, and we just had it last week. And so I said, I know a lot of you are probably gearing up for the Patriot Pack to roll through town, and I just want to let you know they're
yeah,
taking a different tour. And I got these big sighs. Oh,
yeah,
but
After all
we
these
have to share
years.
the magic with those other dealers. So,
And we will. We will. There's a lot of
with you
dealers.
guys' spirit.
All these guys are going to get a visit for the first time, and
Yeah.
they've been asking for years. So it's nice. It's sad though because we've come accustomed to seeing this, a lot of the same people every year, and it's just really really been fun. And you guys have been, wonderful, and even coming out meeting us the day before and doing dinner and everything. So
Well,
we'll miss
I
you this
keep
year, but
threatening I'm gonna pop out on your ride
yeah,
and
maybe you can come and ride in the RV with us or bounce
see
back
you.
along
I
the way.
just might do that, or I might find a stop that you're making and show up because it'd be super fun.
Well, that would be awesome because we will miss you this year.
Yeah.
And that brings me to just wanted to kind of touch base with
Yeah.
you. We were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago, and Canon really wanted to highlight the diversity of one of their dealers during Women's Month, and you were just obviously a poster child for that. It's just a very successful dealership, male-dominated industry. They set us up with Usherwood and the women up there last year, and so this year we're talking to you. And so I
Yeah.
thought I would check in. I guess first let's start with, tell the viewers, for those who don't know, who's Cobb Technologies.
Yeah. Cobb Technologies, we're located in Virginia, and I'm here just outside of Richmond. This is our corporate office, and we have 6 offices across the state. So we service most of Virginia, excluding Northern Virginia. Internally, we have about 120 employees. We do Canon and Konica, our primary lines, and we throw some HP and Kyocera in there. And yeah, we're about 30. We're actually this month we're 33 years old. So
Well,
yeah,
congratulations, 33 years
thanks.
old. That's pretty good. That's pretty good in this day and age.
It
And
is.
what is your role there? What do you do
I'm
for
the
these guys?
president.
You are the president. Well, I'm the president. You're the president. So
Yeah.
um, I was told that just means that we're the ones who are in trouble for any of the hacking or lawsuits that go on.
Yeah.
The ultimate
Yeah.
responsibility rests
Buck
at the
stops there, right?
yeah, that's no fun. But being the president, I think the theme that we had initially talked about, chatting about in our interview here
Yeah.
was it's still perfect, right? Like you're not as unique as you once were, right? There's a lot of very powerful women in this industry
Yes,
running
there
all
is.
sorts of dealerships and branches, and you mentioned Konica Minolta, Canon. They both have very senior women who are running those organizations, in president, some in president roles, some in executive
Yeah.
roles, executive VP roles. What was your journey like? How did you get to where you're at, and coming up from yeah, I actually, when I sold copiers, I wound up in Richmond for a very short period doing
You
some touring
did.
around. Yeah, we did. That's a whole nother story for another day. But how did you wind up in your spot and
Mhm.
just in that role? What was your
Yeah,
journey?
I probably like a lot of people, I landed in this industry by accident, right? You know, I was young, early in my career. I was looking for something to do. I knew somebody that
Mhm.
worked for a Canon dealership here in town, so I just ended up there, right? And um, it just clicked. I loved it, and I went into sales very quickly. I was in a support role when I entered the company, went into sales, and then shortly after that, all those acquisitions started, right? One of the other dealerships in town, a Sharp dealership, purchased the Canon dealership that I worked for, and that's where I met Freddie Cobb. And I don't know if you've ever met Freddie, Andy, but Freddie's the founder of Cobb,
Mhm.
Freddie Cobb. And so I started working with Freddie there. And then we both ended up leaving that organization through some of those roll-ups at the time. And Freddie left and he started Cobb Office Products, actually was the name of the company back then. And it was organic. He just opened the doors. He went, knocked on Mita's door at the time, Kyocera Mita, and picked up that line. And then he came and knocked on my door. And I was home painting one day and he said, "Hey, come on, I want to show you something." And I was walking out the door and I said to my husband, "I'm not going back in that industry."
Yeah.
And then I came back in the industry.
Yep.
We drove downtown and saw a little spot that he, got a lease on. And he said, "Let's do this." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, let's do it." So it was such a fun ride, right? Because you're starting from nothing and you're just building it as you go and you're bringing people on. So, and I can tell you, he was definitely a mentor to me. He was, how did I get to where I am? I attribute a lot of that to him because we were very, you know, we were partners through the whole thing. And even when I was an employee early on, I always felt like I was an instrumental part of what was going to make that organization grow. So I'm grateful for that because it gave me a lot of opportunities. So he's sailed off into the Key West sunset, right?
Good for
So
him. Good
I
for
don't
him.
know. He asked me the other day, he goes, "When did you actually become president?" And I don't even remember, but it's many years ago. Because I went into, I obviously was a sales manager early in my career, and that's when it was difficult. You talk about being in a male dominated industry. I started to go to industry events in that
Yeah.
position. Leaving the nest and going outside your dealership into the industry, and it was just all men.
Mhm.
And I was very young, so it probably was some intimidation factor, and I probably didn't have the confidence early on that I needed to have. But I think what you do is you find your. I found when I got into organizations like CDA that were Copier Dealers Association, a little bit more intimate, right? Not quite as large, and you start to build those relationships, and then you start to think, okay, you're not looking at men, women, they're your peers in your industry, and made such great friends there. And they, regardless of what gender, they're the ones that are your mentors to run things by. And how do you do this? And how do I do this? And, tell me about this. And that's how you grow your organization. So I think it's really important to, if you're in those situations, to just start working on the relationship side of it. Right. And some of my best friends are in this industry now. So that's how I got here. And our Cobb has got, I still look and we have 120 employees, I think was our last count, 118, 120. And,
And growing.
yeah, we are
Yeah.
growing. And we're growing in people, we're growing in revenue, but I would say probably still a third of that's women. So, still even at Cobb, it's, you know, I think it's because you have your whole service sector, which is typically predominantly,
Yep.
male driven, but
But the
yeah,
sales force isn't. The sales force is really yours seemed pretty
it's a
evenly
mixture.
split. Yeah.
Yeah.
The executives, and that's I think that's kind of been a hidden gem in our world. Maybe I'm wrong, but even my dealership back when I worked, and that was the early 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah.
We had 3 sales managers, 2 of them were women. We had um the second in command at our dealership, Juliana McKee. You probably know her. She's
Yeah.
Meridian, and now with I
Yeah.
think with Konica Minolta. She was my boss's boss, right? Like she was second in command, and so that layer has always been there. But now when you look around the room, when you look at all of the people, the daughters, the wives, the sisters that are taking over these dealerships, it's slowly getting there, right? It's
Oh,
slowly
it
evening out.
definitely is. Yeah. Yeah.
It's slowly getting there.
Yeah. You don't even really notice it anymore. Like when,
I don't think so
don't.
either.
It's just kind of a blind thing because there's just so many talented, and that new generation coming up, they're just, they're amazing.
And what do
So,
you do? Do you have a mentor program now to encourage? Because, it is, I don't know, maybe I'm just showing my age, but, I would think that you would want to market to different people differently, right? And
yeah.
if you've got a path for empowering one group of people, is that something that you encourage? Is that something that you highlight? Do you have a program for that?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you asked that because that's a topic of conversation with our executive leadership team now. It's really trying to determine what is the next group that's going to sit at this table, because we're all 50s and up sitting at that table. So
Yeah.
who are the individuals in the organization, not only sitting at that executive leadership, but just even middle management. So we do a lot for development with our management team at all levels of management, but we've been having those conversations lately to start identifying those future leaders, right? And starting to develop them. So when we have openings on that management team or leadership team, that you have people that can roll
Yeah.
in there and start putting them through some of the leadership training that you're offering to the others. So that's definitely something that I think we need to do. And plus, you want to talk about employee retention and engagement. You've got to start setting those lanes in place in your organization that people feel like they have a place to go. Because if they're not getting it with you, they're going to go somewhere else and
That's
get it.
right.
So,
That's right.
yeah, so we're definitely looking at that. We don't have the program nailed down yet, but it's definitely a conversation. We are part of building quality companies with Joe Goodrow and Larry Sudbay, and we've had some conversations with them about maybe using them a little bit to help develop that program. It's important.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, you guys are just such an interesting company, and you're a big one, right? I mean, there's a lot of dealers out there. You're definitely on the larger side, I would say. And hearing how that started with, just the two of you basically opening up in a little shop. I can
Handwriting invoices.
yeah, taking a few customers from the early days and your earlier jobs, and I don't know, it's almost like an episode of The Office that I saw once, right? But it's just such an it was an exciting time back then, right?
Oh, it was.
Technology
Yeah.
was easier to sell. I wouldn't say it's less competitive, but it was
It was
um it,
different.
it was the Wild
Yeah.
West, right?
Yeah.
And,
It
and I
was
got
the
the
Wild West is exactly what it was.
I got the tail end of that. I didn't
Yeah.
quite get enough of it, but I got a little taste of it, and
Yeah.
it was different back then, and you could start something from scratch, and if you had the right people, and you can still do that today. It's not as easy, but and it wasn't easy back then, but it's you have to have a good team around you, right? You have to, and that's why he chose you, and you guys had clearly a great it worked well, a great chemistry, uh,
Yes. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
now you've got 100+ employees, and you're tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and so going forward, looking, we're already a third of the way through the year. I can't believe that. But what's on the plate? What's on the horizon for Cobb this year? What are you excited about?
Well, I think the areas, if we were just to look at the landscape of our business and where are we trying to put the resources that we think can move the needle with growth, right? Production is one of those. I mean, we've done well. We've put a lot into production the last few years, and I would say production is what really was a was an asset to us through COVID. We were able to really pick up some of the revenue we lost in some other buckets with production. So it continues to be a main focus for us. I think that's an area of growth for us, certainly. You can always, I think we can pick up market share on imaging, but that's going to move the needle. And managed IT services, I think we, like a lot of dealers, started with that early on and took a few years to figure it out, right?
It is.
Because
You
it's
get
not
your
easy.
lumps.
Yeah, we did that, but I think we finally have that engine running. So we're looking for some really strong things there. That's where I'd like to maybe try and get an acquisition done in that part of the business to help get us to the next level there. So there's quite a few things there that we're looking at. And also just looking at, we're also looking at trying to figure out how do we do an e-commerce site for some of those level A4s. And, you get so many buckets, Andy. You just got
Well, that's a buzzword, right? And I just did a great interview yesterday with a different manufacturer that we're, one of the few that you're not carrying. But same conversation, right? It was
Yeah,
e-commerce. We spent a lot of time talking about it. There's a few different options out there. Key point intelligence is a great one that everybody knows and is comfortable with,
yeah,
because you've all worked with them for years for your spec checks and all that. But there's others out there, but everybody realizes, you have a website and what are you doing
yeah,
with it, right?
yeah.
You should be doing more.
Yeah, and it's interesting how we all in the owners keep evolving, right? Okay, if we want to get there, we've got to do this, and we got to do that. So,
Yeah.
and you have to, and you look at it, you've got the sales team, and where do you want them spending their efforts?
Yeah. Well, copiers
So,
won't be here forever, right? And
yeah,
and they're here now. They're in a slow decline, but they're in a decline. It's not typewriters, they're not falling off a cliff.
yeah,
But if you can use that to fund growth in other areas, fund your expansion into new things, and then when it's not paying the bills like it does today, well, then you're already set up in a new industry.
yeah,
You'd
yeah.
be
You
silly
got to
not to
keep
look at other
evolving
things.
for
You really would.
sure, for sure.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that about production.
Yeah,
That was uh those engines just chugged along in every industry during COVID because it was the only way to really communicate and it was not the only way, but it was in a
yeah. It was a
critical way
big
to
way. Yeah,
communicate. And
yeah. We did
you've got
well.
great brands for that as well. And so that's really about expertise. You can't just walk into that and say, okay, we're in production now. You've got to have people who have sold it for years. Even better if you had people who were buyers on the other side of that working for you.
Yeah, I'm
It's
very
complex.
grateful because I can tell you the production guy that we have on our team, we competed with him for years, and I just kept hearing this guy's name and hearing this.
Yeah.
And finally, went to lunch with him one day, and all the stars aligned, and it was just the right time for both of us. So he came on board, and he helped put us on the map. And our team has grown since then. And gosh, the service team, you've really got to get that thing ramped up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you
Um,
no accidents there. It's not like I mean, it's bad enough if you have a networked MFP that's down and they're kind of stuck. But when you
yeah.
get paid on prints
You
and
gotta
you
get it. You
can't
gotta keep
print,
it moving.
that's a
Mhm.
problem. That's you're taking money out of now you're staying late. You might be working over the weekend now just because that thing was down and you need redundancy. You need
Yep.
it working right, and
Yeah.
it's to get it going properly when people's livelihoods are at stake. It's pretty important. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
well, this has just been absolutely awesome. I love catching up with you. I'm sorry we
I
won't be catching
know.
up with you in June,
Yeah.
and getting our breakfast. But hopefully maybe I'll get down there at some point within the next year or so, and
I hope so. We'd love
that
to
would
have
be awesome to
you.
see you guys.
It would. It
This
would.
is this is just great though. Thank you to Canon for setting
Yes.
this up for us, and Toni, just great seeing you. Any last shout outs to anyone?
No, no. I'm just you guys drive safe, ride safe in August, and who knows, maybe I'll pop in and visit.
We will keep in touch. I'll let you know where all the dates are. Maybe you could stop by somewhere. That would be
I
awesome.
would
So
love it. I would
great
love
seeing
it.
you.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
Andy. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.